There's something very disheartening about having to do something again. And anyone who's ever written something and then lost it, their file's been eaten. The mental energy to sort of try and rewrite 10 pages or a chapter or something, it's just enormous. Um, I've done this video. Um, my wife started shouting at me about 20 minutes into it, something inconsequential, but it was my fault because I hadn't said, I'm doing a YouTube video, please don't shout at me. Um, So I started again. I do these things in one take because I'm too lazy to learn how to push the bits together and join them with bits of sticky tape. So I just give you the warts and all, but that was too big a wart to present. Anyway, this is a proof of life video. I'm aware that I've not done a YouTube video for a while, and doing one now to say, hey, I'm still doing this. Um, my youngest daughter, Kellen, who's severely disabled, has been in and out of hospital a lot over the last 6 weeks, and that's my excuse for not doing any. Um, so it's the end of the year, so I was just going to do a few sort of summary things, tell you what I'm up to. Um, Currently, I was proofreading the book that broke the world, which is book 2 in the library trilogy, and will be published in April. Proofreading is not something I have to do. There's a proofreader who will do it, but I always do just because if the book went out and there was something I could have spotted and fixed, then and I didn't, I would feel guilty. Um, Most of the way through that, and I've got a copy edit on the third book, which doesn't actually have a name at the moment. I suspect it's going to be the book that something something. This current second book was actually the lie that broke the world, but then the publisher's marketing department decided the repetition of the book that something would be better. And you don't argue with marketing because you want them to be on side. So I went with the flow. Um, Copy editing is someone has gone through it, the copy editor, and has made a bunch of sort of not story level suggestions, but sort of line by line, just sort of you've repeated this word a couple of times, or you've messed up the grammar here, or did you really mean this because that person just walked out of the room on the previous page? And so there's some shaking it around, and I mean, some of the things there's suggestions, and I don't take them. I'll say, well, actually, I like my version of that line better than yours, and sometimes I'll take them. If it's ever lots of it's about commas, and I just say I have no opinions on commas, accept all of that stuff. And I am currently 90,000 words into the first book of a new trilogy that will come out after the library trilogy concludes. So that will be 2026. And that trilogy will run through 26, 27, and 28. So it's the future has been laid out to some degree. And that's, well, I think I want to call the trilogy the Maiden Mother Hag um, trilogy after that sort of archetype in many mythologies. There's a maiden mother hag thing. You've got the Norns and the Furies and the Fates. It's a recurring the Morrigan thing, and I wanted to have an older woman, female protagonist, or basically an old lady. People were saying, you don't have enough old women represented in fantasy, so I'm calling their bluff and giving one. And it's a sort of steering back into more grim dark territory. Uh, I wanted to go in reverse order, so I wanted to call the first book Hag, and then Mother, and then Maiden. Um, I don't think the publishers like Hag, but I think it's quite a sort of arresting, punchy title that can then be subverted by the text, because obviously I don't approve of calling old women hags. Um, but anyway, we'll see what happens there. So at the end of each year, I always do my year in numbers, which is a bunch of statistics about the year, and I do my year in reading, which is the books I've read. So we'll just have a quick look through those. I only read 9 books this year, which sounds terrible, but it's actually not bad for me. I think I average about 10 or 11, which is why I have to say no when people ask me to read things, because I get asked to read books hundreds of times a year, and I can only read about 10. And some of those I'd like to choose myself rather than just be responding to requests. And one of the ones I did choose myself was Black Tongue Thief. And I chose it because everyone was raving about it, and it's good for a writer to read books that are popular so that you can somehow try and absorb some of that goodness. And it's a really good book. That's my favorite book of the year. I enjoyed that very much. The sequel, I think it's called The Daughter's War, is coming out soon. I think I'm looking forward to that a lot. All of these books were good. Some really, really good. Discovery of Witches is a very bestseller. I'm sure it's probably sold millions. It wasn't really my cup of tea. I'm not a big fan of this whole witches and vampires in the modern world stuff. But it did it early, so even though it felt derivative, actually, it's probably because I've seen things that derive from it, and it's well written. Um, Sons of Darkness by Gaurav Mohanty was basically grimdark, set in India, using all of the, well, not set in India, using the Indian mythos for inspiration, and it was a good read. The Hexologist is a first book in a new series by Josiah Bancroft. I'm a big fan of, and I enjoyed that. His prose is always top notch. Um, Morgan of Sea and Storm was actually given to me by an author about 6 years ago, I think, and that's how long it took me to get around to reading it, even though it's quite a short book. Um, and on Goodreads, it has literally, I think, 3 or 4 ratings. So this is a book that almost nobody has read, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was good, interesting, challenging. Had a lot going for it. I encouraged the author to put it into the SPFBO. But if you're looking for something off the beaten path, then you might want to give that a go. It's a sort of retelling of the Arthurian legend um, with spin. I read The Prophet of Edan, which is the second book in the Edan trilogy, which started with The Way of Edan, and I really enjoyed that. That's by Philip Chase. The Words of Kings and Prophets by Shauna Lawless is the second in her trilogy, which started with The Children of Gods and Fighting Men, which I read last year, which I thought was very good indeed. And this book I felt was even better. That's an excellent read. It's based on the Celtic mythos. It's a historical fantasy, so it's set in Ireland in the year 1000 or so, and calls heavily on the mythos there, and introduces magic. That's been inspired by those stories. 10th Gift, very big seller by my editor in at Voyager, Jane Johnson. I read that and really enjoyed it. Has a lot in common with a number of her books, sort of various themes and devices, but they're good themes and devices, and I have an appetite for reading about them. So if you're interested in Jane Johnson's work, again, it's historical. It's not even fantasy. It's just historical fiction. I think it's 1600-ish, and uh, British women or British woman is stolen by slavers off the Cornish coast, which is a thing that really happened in those days, but we don't really talk about very much. And there's a modern day thing going on, and sort of the 2 storylines are running in parallel with interactions between them. So give that a try. And this last one is The Hills of Heather and Bone, which is a finalist in this year's SPFBO. And it's by, I believe, K.E. Andrews, who you have this big name author thing where the name of Stephen King will take up the top third of the front cover. Well, K.E. Andrews has got the smallest author name I've ever seen, so she's very humble, and I enjoyed that. That's a good book. Yeah, so that was my year in reading, my year in numbers. I'm not going to bore you with too much. The highlighted thing there is that the number of ratings that my books have been given on Goodreads has exceeded recently 500,000, which was fairly mind-blowing. Not a position I ever thought I would be in. Um, and the book that wouldn't burn has contributed to that this year. It's got somewhere around 9,000 ratings, which isn't bad for its first 8 months or so. And it was in the Goodreads Choice Awards, and just being nominated one of the 20 books for best fantasy of the year. It's a popularity contest. It's all based on ratings and average rating and ratings numbers on Goodreads. So it's a popularity contest, but an author's never going to complain about being in a popularity contest because it means you've sold quite a few books. So that was nice. And there was many much bigger sellers that wiped it out in the contest. It came 12th, which thank you for everyone who voted for it, which was punching above its weight. I think the book that came 11th had 4 times more ratings than it, which means basically 4 times more people had read it. And it only got like 1,000 more votes than the book that wouldn't burn. So, having made this video twice, I've now forgotten uh, in which version I said certain things. Um, I'm going to assume I've already told you about some of the stuff that I'm thinking about now. Oh, there's a that this is one of the statistics I give on my year in numbers, and you can see that the blog had its biggest ever single day. We got 100,000 hits in one day. That was when we had this controversy in the SPFPO with a cover that was designed by AI, so AI art, and it won the cover contest. And the person who had created it had lied and told us that it was their own personal work, but it wasn't. And there was this was kind of discovered on Twitter, so there was a big hoo-ha about that, and bang, for 11 or 12 years of blogging, and bang, it's the biggest day ever. What else? I was going to show you this little detail from the. So I'm going to do a cover reveal will be done for the book that broke the world. Last year, the cover was leaked to Amazon. Leaked. It was given to Amazon by mistake by the publisher, which kind of undermined they were going to do some sort of reveal, and in the end, it was accidentally leaked to Amazon, and then they tweeted about it. But I'd had a plan to produce a number of jigsaws and send them out to bloggers and let them sort of reveal it to the world as they were piecing it together. That'd be quite fun. I'm hoping to do something like that this year, but I'm still negotiating with the publisher about it. In the meantime, the publisher did accidentally leak it to Amazon again, but fortunately this time it was German Amazon, and the only people who spotted it were kind enough not to then splatter it across the social media. So I still have a chance of my jigsaw dream. We'll see what comes of that. But I will show you a small detail from the center of the cover, just as a hey, the Christmas present. So obviously it's heavily enlarged, but you can get some sort of sense of the color scheme. There's our favorite raven, and you can tell that it's has the same sort of theme as the book that wouldn't burn, but obviously the actual details will be different. And I was going to show you. Let me just grab them. Grim Oak Press have completed their uh, series of individual 10th anniversary Broken Empire books. These are the super deluxe, leather bound, color illustrations in them. They're lovely things. They're also quite expensive, and the Prince of Thorns has sold out. I imagine the King of Thorns is on its way to selling out. But those are something you could consider. And Broken Binding have just bought out their 10th anniversary King of Thorns, which is printed in the UK and is much cheaper. Um, so it gives people in the UK a chance of not having to spend vast sums on importing um, the American version. And Grimmock Press give the Americans the opportunity to not have to spend an arm and a leg getting the British version posted to them. Um, and yes, as I say, the King of Thorns for the Broken Binding has just come out. Their version, their Prince of Thorns, has sold out quite a while ago, and their Emperor of Thorns will come along fairly soon. I believe I've just written a short story, a Jorg short story to go in there, um, just to add a little interest to it. Anyway, I think that's probably all I want to say, apart from happy holidays, happy Christmas, happy whatever. And I've got Wobble down here, so since he's hanging around, let's bring him up to scowl at you. There you go. A little dose of Wobble. Bring in the punters. Oh yeah, you're supposed to like and subscribe because that helps me somehow. Right. See you around.